Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your usual host, Lord Drongo of Team Nordic USA, and today we're going to be talking about the next four blades in our lineup, which will be Claw Night Lance, Rhino Horn, and Kill Shark. These four blades are definitely more interesting in the overall meta that is Beyblade X, and ultimately we do enjoy doing this segment. I hope that you are enjoying watching. And just for the record, if anyone ever has any comments about builds that we could try or would like to recommend any builds for any blades in the future or ones that we've already done, just throw them in that comment section below. We'll check it out. We'll get back to you eventually about how we feel about it. And without further ado, we just want to go ahead and drop right in. So up first is Claw Leon. All right, so talking about Claw Leon. Claw Leon is a very interesting blade of mine and probably one of my all-time favorites in the entire X series. The Leon line is actually one of my all-time favorites in general, next to the Incendio line. But anyways, so Claw Leon has 5 contact points. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they're designed almost like stripes in a like claw-like kind of design fashion, really emphasizing on the name itself. The design is absolutely gorgeous and capable of really, putting out the damage when it needs to, and even playing the long game if it has to. It's not the greatest at stamina, but it can use stamina to its advantage. It is also, this bay is also very well designed to do exactly what balanced bays are supposed to. Attack is high, while other stats are generally good. That is the notes that I collected about this blade itself, and I absolutely enjoy using this blade. This is my, of course, American themed one that I did, but my one that I regularly use for now is my red and black at locals, and you can see it's got some wear and tear on it. It has seen some play. It, along with my Incendios, have the most overall damage to them for use in general tournament play. But without further ado, let's just kind of get into it. It's very early in the morning, and I'm fighting sleep. So 560 on kick is the most highly recommended build that I give everybody. Typically, somebody would probably be like, why wouldn't you want to use 960? It's like, okay, 960 is fine, but 960 does better with the point, in my opinion, and overall experiences. But yes, 560 kick has high amounts of stamina, super great aggression. Kick is a very hard bit to master, in my opinion, because kick is extremely unpredictable, and typically you tend to go 2-point pocket or 3-point pocket on yourself, and you can really self KO yourself if you're just not careful with how you use the blade. Leaning certain ways under certain situations makes all the difference in the world, and could ultimately end up costing you the game if you don't pay attention to your surrounding environment, which is the stadium, your opponent, their blade, what launcher they're using, and how they are launching. You have to take a lot of information into consideration when you're using a bit like kick, especially if you need to use it aggressively, defensively, or neutral, or whatever. So ultimately, 560 on kick is the best build, but it's also the hardest one to play. Generically, 960 on point is the easiest one to play, speaking out of the difficulty at the top 2, but it's also, it's got just basically 2 strategies, which is attack and outlast. You can do more than that, but ultimately those are the 2 main strategies, as opposed to kick, allowing you to attack, defend, outlast, and basically guerrilla hit and run, just depending on how you want to go about it, and also what blade they're using and how they are launching makes major impact on that strategy too. But 960 point is just the 2, because point, basically, the way it's designed, it either attacks or it staminas. Sorry about that, had a big stretch. Next up is 570 on gear point. Now, this one is a very high aggression with big weight. You're throwing a 70 ratchet on there to give a little bit more weight, and you're using gear point to have the gear part of it to be far more aggressive, and the point to give you just a little bit of stamina back, allowing you to try and play the mid game. You definitely won't make it to the long game like you would with point, but the mid game, you'll still have some stamina to try and sit in the middle and basically just kind of what they call tat at each other, where the blades are just like ting, 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 over and over and over, not really hitting each other hard enough to send each other away, but you are chipping away at your opponent, trying to wear them down and beat them. Then build number 4, 360 on taper. 360 on taper is really good. for the aggression, and it has some good stamina to offer. However, it does sacrifice even more defense, and the speed is only kind of there because of the fact that Taper typically uses its stamina in the early game with a lean, and then it turns into aggression mode once it starts settling out, flattening up. Basically, once you tilt to a flat stand, it starts eating up that stamina because of this tiny little flat ring where it immediately starts going into attack mode and just kind of rips through it all. And then number 5 was kind of an off the wall build, but I saw it used a lot in some random matches around the country, video uploads, and all kinds of stuff. But it does seem to work really well, and that's 270 on dot, not 260. I'm not a big fan of the 2 series, and I'm not a big fan of certain bits, but this one did seem to perform pretty well. And dot being a defensive bit that can turn into aggression, stamina, etc., is really really good. So it works, and I feel like that dot is an underrated bit. A lot of people seem to like it, but a lot of people also seem to say it's terrible. The funny thing is that its stats are actually pretty incredibly high, and that just really really speaks for its performance unto itself. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and talk about the stats. We've got the attack locked in at 7 out of 10. The defense is 4 out of 10. The speed is 6 out of 10. And the stamina is 5 out of 10. That's the averages across the board. And it turns out that Clawleon is actually pretty good all the way around. Can't wait to see how we end up rating Crestleon and even Fangleon when we finally get it here in the States. Up next will be Nightlands. So here we are with Lance Knight, whatever. I really hate that they changed the names around. It's so hard to keep up with them. Lance is a all-around pretty well-rounded blade that actually has, believe it or not, if you look closely, you'll see 6 contact points instead of 3. Because the contact points are not actually right here in these divots. They're actually these extra pieces off to the side here. That's actually its real main contact points, where it does the most damage. And it's just really well balanced blade that is designed for really good defense based strategies, and it can really just put the hurt down really fast. It's incredibly heavy, and it has great defensive capacity. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. And first up, we have 560 on Hexa. 560 on Hexa being our top build for this that we saw. Really does tend to hit the middle of the stadium and go defense mode, and anything that tends to hit it, it's got that heavy weight, really compacted in, just like Rhino, and it can really take the bulk of an attack or two, really letting your opponent just chip away their strength and stamina at the same time. And ultimately, it's just a really good blade to really put the punishment down if you launch it correctly. Our second build is 960 on Needle. Typically, a lot of people prefer High Needle more, because the whole general concept of both Knight and Lance Knight is that they love to be up tall, lean down, and smack into the opponent from above. But I noticed that with the 570 High Needle build, if you go up against a lot of Ratchet Snipers, which is a more popular build play strategy in Beyblade X series or era, you're going to get Ratchet Sniped a lot. So you really got to know how to play the High Needle and the 570 a lot more than the 960 regular needle, because if you don't have that experience to play that build, then it's going to fail you a lot, and you're going to feel like it's not that good. So the low end of 960 with needle really lets Lance do exactly what you want it to do, which is slightly tilt in and do that oval like waving style spin, so that when blades come in low, it is also kind of low, but still just slightly high, and tilts down, and they basically hit and just shave off and go up over. So typically that's what you want to do. 570 on High Needle, as we said, you're sitting up very high and you're doing exactly what the blade is meant to do. You're leaning over the opponent and just kind of barraging them downwards, which is pushing them into the ground and causing them to, dig, which is a term we use. Dig means that the blade turns in and starts digging into the side and losing tons and tons of stamina really fast and spins itself out. Up next is the 970 on Point build. I don't own a 970, but it plays more aggressively. Using the 970 as slightly higher, but with point for the flat edges to go aggression mode, and then the ball in the middle of the point to make it more stamina in the late game, really uses the weight of the blade itself as an aggress attacker, and it's really interesting strategy. Especially, it can really knock them into the 3-point and 2-point pockets easily, and it's just really fun to play that strategy. But I'm too traditional. I believe, if If something's defense, it's mostly meant to be played defensively. Same for attacker. I get why people do it, but like, I don't know. I've always been kind of purist about it. So, there's a little bit of an influence there. But I still say that the 560 Hexa beats the 970 point easily. Up next will be our final build. This one's a little controversial. It's kind of interesting what it is, but it's 370 on Elevate, and what you're aiming to do is mostly dodge tactics and use your stamina with heavy weight to stay away from the blades until they've worn themselves down, and then you just come in for a big smash attack and kind of knock them out. So ultimately, that strategy is very straightforward, but a lot of people say it's terrible, while a lot of people say it's great. It's one of those things, and the biggest reason is the Elevate curse. The Elevate curse, for whatever reason, it just bursts so easily if you rip too hard, but you do want to put some power behind it so that you have extra stamina. It's a very hard to understand argument in the situation, and it can be very frustrating to deal with. But if you ever practice it and get it down, you'll get to that point where you just know exactly just how hard to pull it. So a lot of practice makes perfect. Notes was Lance Knight is a particularly interesting bay for its defensive design. It boasts outstanding counterattack power, as we've discussed. And the stats was attack, we placed it at a 6 out of 10, defense 8 out of 10, speed 4 out of 10, and stamina 5 out of 10. So all in all, has great capacity for attack and defense. Speed's not terrible, but it's not the greatest either. But then again, it's a defense blade. It's not meant for that. And stamina is right about that 50% that you need it to be in order to pull off a couple of these strategies. So that's Lance Knight, and I hope you enjoyed it. And next we will talk about Rhino Horn. This is Rhino Horn. Rhino Horn is an incredibly bulky and very heavy for its size style of blade. Very capable of really just, shunting up big hits and counter smashing. It's very four-pointed design, like a four-leaf clover, is designed to really sling these big, chunky slabs of metal into your opponent at high velocity. And it really can do some serious damage in a very short amount of time. So my notes on it is another controversial bay. Rhino Horn is an underdog story for sure. It's small size but high weight, can really throw that weight around. So builds, 160 on Rush was the most successful build that we saw. However, just about all these builds had the same amount of success, honestly. They all won, I would say, close to 6 or 7 out of 10 games easily. So that was actually pretty cool. We was very, very happy with the stats on Rhino Horn. But yes, 160 on Rush. 160 really puts it to where the corner that the 60 weight is on really hits with a hard hit, a real hard smash attack, and even a counter smash if your opponent catches you off guard. And it really can, take that weight and shove it into your opponent's face. Sorry about the yawn. The Rush bit gives it high aggression with a little bit of stamina and allows for a serious play, and it can really, do some cool strategies if you ever want to check it out. Up next is 270 on Hexa, more of a center of the stage, slightly defensive stamina style play, trying to stay a little closer to the middle like defenses usually do, but uses speed and movement to its advantage to try and stay away from the opponent until they whittle themselves down. 360 on Gear Point gives it a lot more aggression, but takes away some of the stamina. But the point itself does give it that stamina that it needs in order to survive. 460 on Taper, being our fourth build, is really, really good build all the way around. The way the points tuck in just underneath each of the clover edges is great, which helps the 60 try not to burst as much. The Taper, instead of the high Taper, keeps it kind of lower to the ground, keeps them from reaching the 460 as easily as a high Taper or high needle would, and allows it to really play the aggression game in the mid and late game while using stamina in the early game to stay afloat. And finally, our fifth and final build, 760 on Gear Flat, or Level if you want to try and play the stamina to your advantage, is very, very incredible strategy. It does work. However, I just felt that trying to play too much stamina kind of takes away from its capacity to really use its defense to its nature and to its advantage. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that if you're playing stamina and you're moving around too much at the same time, it does eat up some of your stamina. That's where things like Ball and Orb tend to do a lot better. So anyways, our stats: attack our attack power was put in at 3 out of 10. Our defense was 7 out of 10. Our speed was 7 out of 10. And our stamina was 6 out of 10. So all the way around, a very good blade. Now, obviously, that attack power jumps up a lot more when you use bits like gear and taper and rush. But the bottom line is the blade is designed more about taking hits than it is about dishing. So typically, it's going to have a very low stat in that area. As far as recommended pairings goes, we don't really have much for these blades. We could give you some recommendations, but ultimately, it just doesn't seem to really matter much. No offense to anyone. It's just that it really comes down to how you play and what you want to play. So up next will be Kill Shark. This one's a big favorite of the overall fan base. Alrighty, everybody. So here we are talking about Kill Shark. Now, Kill Shark is a huge fan favorite because it's your very traditional attack pattern blade, all hardcore attack. You can see it only has two major wings, major points of contact for the attack, and they start at a downward slope and go upward into a tipped wing like a fin or a tail, and really excels at that hard, heavy, big early game hits that basically just send your opponent either into ratchet burst or out of the arena completely. And yeah, so our notes here is that Kill Shark is arguably one of the most aggressive bays in Beyblade X. It makes up for its lack in stamina and in speed and attack power. It's also not very defensive, and yeah, so we're going to get right into it. The best build out there that people are using, although I'm not really sure how, is 260 on low rush. I do not own a low rush, sadly, but I will say this. I'm not a big fan of 260. Its burst rate seems to be fairly high for a 60 ratchet, which is kind of annoying. And the biggest argument that I have against this combo is that when you lock in the chip, why is it that a ratchet that would have been perfect for Shark lines right up in this really bad spot, this slit? Why did they not, when you lock them in, be right there like that? If they had been locked in instead of, this, say it starts here, and then when you click it over, it's like right there. That would have been the saving grace for 260, and this would have become an incredibly competitive piece. But instead, they chose to go the other way on it, and it kind of just, in my opinion, ruins the playability and makes it way too hard, way too much skill required to play the blade with that ratchet and bit. Up next is our traditional showdown that we saw for the longest time on this, which was 360 on low flat. The performance is there, the stats are there, the ratings are there. It's one of the best builds in my opinion. Yes, you sacrifice a lot of stamina with low flat, but I think you make up for it with the ability to early game win and really play the aggression and go in and get that snipe on the ratchet. Up next is our 660 on Excel or level if you want to try and play the stamina game. Like I said, this is not a very stamina-based Beyblade, but the 6 points does tend to help with that some, and level can play this slot if you want. Although Excel is more about aggression, which is everything that Shark is designed to be. It hits hard. It has just a little bit more stamina for that mid game. You definitely won't play the late game playing Kill Shark. It doesn't happen very often at all, and it's just not worth the effort to put too much energy into it. That having been said, we go to our fourth build, which is 960 on Point. Point's going to give you early game aggression and mid game stamina, which is going to help you try and hit one last extra final hard hitting time. And it's going to allow you to really just, hit your opponent the way you want to hit them and hopefully either send them out the 3-point pocket or burst them and gain yourself some extra points. Our final build, this one caught me by surprise. 455 on flat. I am not a fan of the 55 or the 85 ratchets, and the reason why is because if you look, they're just a round ring instead of the bow tie. The bow tie clips in and holds a lot stronger. This round ring really does not hold on that well, but you don't really need it to hold on that well. What you need it to do is within the first hit or second hit, burst your opponent and win the game. And these ratchets, they can kind of do that. I don't understand 85 being so easy to break loose, seeing as it was actually intended for defense strategies. Just didn't make any sense to me to make it that way, but whatever. I'm sure they had their reasons. Anyways, that is our builds, our lineup for Kill Shark. And without further ado, we're going to talk about the stats. Attack power, we got it locked in at 8 out of 10. Very, very high attack power. Very high number for attack. Defense is 3 out of 10. Pretty low, but then again, not meant to be defense. Speed 8 out of 10, incredibly fast. Not quite as fast as Shark Scale and a couple others, but it stays right on their heels. I'm not even going to joke. Stamina, 4 out of 10. Again, pure aggression, pure attack, not meant for stamina. Meant to hit your opponent hard, win the game as early as possible, and then move on to the next game. So ultimately, Keel Shark is one of the more competitive blades that was released straight stock combo and etc. And a lot of people love it and swear by it. And yeah, just absolutely outstanding. Um, so thank you again for watching this video all the way to the end. Greatly appreciate that as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get the notifications when we upload content, go live, or anything. Also, you can always check in the description box for our social media channels. So you can catch our videos, watch our live stream playing video games, Beyblade, etc. And as always, we meet up at Dice Head Games and Comics in the Bradley Square Mall every Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Typically, our tournaments start up at right about 5 o'clock, and we kind of run from there until it's finished. And it's a lot of fun. We would greatly appreciate anybody who wants to come out and play some Beyblade and have a good day. And you can always find us there at 200 Paul Huff Parkway in Cleveland, Tennessee. And we would just love to have you in. So come on in and have some fun. Till then, I'm Lord Drongo, and I'll catch you next time.